YouTube audience, I am so sorry. This is round 3, trying to review The Loser. Sound should work this time. If you just tried watching 45 minutes of silence, apparently the stick mic doesn't work with the upgraded sound. I still have the upgraded sound going on the Zoom recorder. Let's try this, round 3. Let's do it. Podcast listeners, you'll have no idea this happened. All right, you losers, let's get to work. Welcome to the DC Animated Movie Show, a YouTube series and podcast for the prestigious, ongoing catalog of DC animated movies. I am your host, Benjamin David. If you're new here to the channel, then welcome to Above and Batman Beyond. And the audio from today's episode will also be on our DC Animated Movie Show podcast, so be sure to subscribe to both. So tonight we review the newest of DC Showcase animated shorts, The Losers. The short was included with the newest of DC animated features, Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1. So both films were released together on digital and Blu-ray on June 22nd, which is unique, which is what we're going to talk about, that it wasn't just digital, then Blu-ray. Then with Long Halloween Part 2, we're going to get a Blue Beetle short, both dropping digitally on July 27th, Blu-ray on August 10th. So definitely stay tuned for a review of that. And speaking of Long Halloween Part 1, if you haven't seen our review of the new flick, then definitely go back, check that out. I'll put the episode links in the description below. It's in this very playlist for the DC Animated Movie Show. And you can find that review in both video and audio form. Videos, again, right here in the YouTube channel, and the audio is up on the DCAMS podcast feed. Since we are new on YouTube, since we are on YouTube, please let us know in the comments below what you thought of The Losers or Long Halloween Part 1 or many other questions and comments on DC Animated Movies. So before we jump into it, if you're new here at the channel, please consider subscribing on YouTube. Click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. And for the podcast listeners, please subscribe to the pod, just like the vid series. We are a DC Animated Movie Show. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, this particular episode is available in both video and audio form, so you get to pick your poison for today's show. But please, again, subscribe to both, since there's plenty of YouTube stuff you're obviously not going to find on the podcast, and vice versa. Follow us on Instagram. We are at DC Animated Movie Show. And follow the YouTube channel as well. We are at Batman Beyond Media. And finally, on the topic of DC Showcase Shorts, today's episode continues our Showcase Short review series, starting with the April release of Commandy, the Last Boy on Earth. Then we review the recent crop of shorts from 2019 through 2020. Then we're going to bookend the series with another new short with Blue Beetle in July. So the older shorts are audio only right now, but vid clips will be coming soon to the YouTube channel. We did Phantom Stranger, Adam Strange, Sergeant Rock. We're doing a two-parter for the genius Neil Gaiman's death. So if you like DC Showcase Shorts, then definitely subscribe to the DCAMS podcast to catch the series. All right, you losers, fall in for today's review of the DC Showcase short, The Losers. All right, let's check in with the chat. Patty, chat. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost YouTube subscribers after 3 rounds, but this is, once again, if I didn't say before, YouTube audience, we're cut for the podcast, but this is the 3rd studio now. I write and edit in one. I have the YouTube / the vidcast one that's been going great, but again, I'm working out my during the week studio, so thank you for your patience once again. All right, for those of you watching on YouTube, once again, comment below with your thoughts on the new Losers short. If you haven't seen The Losers yet, then please keep in mind this is a spoiler review of Losers. And it's a pretty spoilery story, so 3, 2, 1, spoilers, here we go. So first we'll talk about some Blu-ray and release details for The Losers, and then, of course, we'll get to my review. But before we do that, as always, we check in with the trusty internet movie database for some quick IMDb trivia on DC Showcase The Losers. So this is the IMDb synopsis. The Losers, the legendary ragtag team of World War II outcasts, find themselves marooned on an uncharted island in the South Pacific that is completely overrun with, and I am not going to finish that synopsis. We're going to get to all this again. This is a spoiler review, but I just want to kind of recreate me not reading the synopsis and then watching this movie. Completely overrun with ... Again, The Losers dropped digitally and on Blu-ray June 22nd, along with the Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1. So The Losers short is directed by Milo Newman, written by Long Halloween writer Tim Sheridan, so same release. He also wrote this short with Ming-Na Wen as Special Agent Fan Long, Eugene Bird as Henry Milo Minute Jones, and David B. Mitchell as Gunner Sarge. The music for The Losers is by Robert J. Krull, who also did the music for Commandy, The Last Boy on Earth. Did a fantastic job with both of these. Ming-Na Wen is Fennec Shand of The Mandalorian. Again, she is Special Agent Fan Long in this Loser short, which is funny because Katie Sackhoff is Poison Ivy in Long Halloween Part 2. So again, this came along with Long Halloween Part 1. Katie Sackhoff, who is Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian, is Poison Ivy in Long Halloween Part 2. So that's pretty funny. Oh, wow. Someone's actually joining us, which is pretty cool. Thanks for joining us after all the mayhem recently with the studio. Eugene Bird was also in last year's Superman Man of Tomorrow as Ron Trope. I don't know who that is, but he was Mile a Minute. Director Milo Newman's directorial debut, The Losers, is the first time Milo directed and did a fantastic job. He was also a storyboard artist, so oftentimes directors come from the world of storyboard art. Did Harley Quinn animated, Constantine City of Demons, and a personal favorite, Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge, which explains the incredibly well-executed, violent action in this. Not just action, not just well-executed action, violent, grown-up action in this. Writer Tim Sheridan, Long Halloween's Part 1 and 2. Superman Men of Tomorrow, excellent writer. I mean, to get me to like Superman as much as he did, I'm not a big Superman guy. Getting more so now, but and then Long Halloween Part 1. If you haven't seen my review, once again, not just to plug it, it's because I love that movie. He did such a good job, specifically with an adaptation, and especially with an adaptation of a book that, unlike a lot of people, I'm not a huge fan of. So to bring out the best parts of Long Halloween, this was fantastic as well. This short for The Losers. He also wrote The Death and the Reign of the Superman in the DCAM, the DC animated movie universe. I thought those were great too, especially revisiting them. Way better than I remembered them being. So we talked about this on our Commandy review, but to catch you up, Rick Morales is a producer on The Losers short, along with all 4 DC Showcase shorts for 2021. So I just thought this was kind of interesting, and I thought I'd bring it back into this because same producer, he, again, back in January when DC announced their new lineup of shorts, they also announced that Morales was set to produce all 4. So in addition to The Losers, the other 3 shorts this year are for Commandy, The Last Boy on Earth, which we reviewed, Blue Beetle coming up, again, that's with Long Halloween Part 2, and then Constantine as well. So this is from IGN. The shorts will be included as part of upcoming releases of DC Universe movies collections, with the exception of the lengthier Constantine film, which will serve as an anchor for a collection of short films in 2022. So all four new short films are being produced by Rick Morales, who previously worked on Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge. So I'm a little confused as what it means, which the exception of the lengthier Constantine film. So lengthier, does that mean we're going to get a Constantine feature? I don't know. I'm confused. But anyway, we're getting, and I know I should know this because I have a DC animated movie show. We talked about this with the Commandy review, but I'm just a little confused with that wording, and I want to look a little more into it. The point is that we're getting another collection of short films in 2022. I'm assuming all Constantine related if this lengthier Constantine film is coming. So that's pretty cool. But what excites me most about Rick Morales producing all 4 of 2021 shorts, once again, get over here, Scorpion's Revenge. So badass. And that new short, we're going to talk about that next week on the show, because I can't wait to bring it up, is the new trailer for Mortal Kombat Battle of the Realms. I think it's called Battle of the Realms, for the Realms, whatever it is. I cannot wait for that. So that's next week. Some character comic background, since like many of the showcase shorts, the losers aren't the best known DC characters. So as always, we do some background on the character and some quick comic history, just to catch you guys up a little bit. Not too deep, but first appeared in DC's GI Combat comic in 1969, which is interesting because it's a World War II. They were World War II heroes, but 1969. Created by Robert Kanigher, which interestingly, I learned this through our Sergeant Rock review, was created Sergeant Rock. So he created another World War II set of heroes. First appeared in, already I just said that, started off as, once again, World War II comics in the late 60s and 70s, then reimagined for DC's Vertigo line of comics. Actually, a live-action movie in 2010 later on after that. So DC's Vertigo line, Vertigo is kind of like a DC Prestige. They put out, I believe, a bunch of the Sandman stuff, Swamp Thing, and then again, The Losers. This was interesting too. Each character in what are called the DC War Anthology books leading up to the premiere of The Losers. I don't know why I'm talking staccato, but leading up to The Losers, the DC War Anthology books, interestingly, each of the ensemble in The Losers had their own books in these War Anthology books. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like the Sergeant had his own book. Maybe Pooch had his own book. I don't know. Also from IGN, The Losers, based on the same comic of the 2010 film, follows a group of ex-Special Forces team attempting to wipe their names from a CIA kill list after being betrayed by their enigmatic handler. We didn't get anything specific, obviously, in this short about their enigmatic handler. I don't even know if they mentioned the word CIA at any of this kill list. But the point is that it's saying The Losers is based on that same comic that the 2010 film is based on. So maybe that's closer to the 2010 film storyline. Whoa, being loud. Blu-ray release details, and then we'll get to the review again. The Losers dropped on both digital and Blu-ray on 6/22, which is rare. Normally, we're going to get DCAM dropped digitally, and then we're going to get, what I meant to say is we're going to get digital, then we're going to get physical like 2 weeks later. In this case, we got same day. I'm assuming it's because it's the two-part. What confuses me is that Long Halloween Part 2 is going to be digital and Blu-ray, separate releases, but it's also obviously part of the Part 2, so I don't understand why they're doing that. But once again, we got digital and Blu-ray on 6/22. Long Halloween Part 2, along with the Blue Beetle short, is coming on 7/27 with the Blu-ray on August 10th. There was a Best Buy exclusive, very hard to find for Long Halloween Part 1. Shout out at DAT Figures on Instagram. He tagged me the second I got home from buying it at Target, knowing there wasn't going to be a figure. So I was about to say that unfortunately we're getting no exclusive Best Buy figure. They typically put out a figure with most of these shorts, or sorry, most of these DC animated movie releases. They didn't put out one for this, so I didn't bother going to Best Buy. Best Buy's right across from Target. Drove all the way back, what I call Toy Alley, which is a great US one. It's like this 10, 15 minute stretch of Walmart, and then Target and Best Buy right across from each other. So as a DCAM fan for all those exclusives, DCAM exclusives, I'm all about Best Buy Tuesday Media Day when a new DCAM comes out. But once again, all right, no figure, so I didn't bother going to Best Buy. Drive all the way back Toy Alley, have a tag in my Instagram waiting for me going, just got the Best Buy exclusive. Toy Alley. Drove all the way back to Best Buy to find out they can't order it to my store. It was so annoying. The point is, there is a Best Buy exclusive steelbook out there somewhere. If you can get it, please mail me one. But actually don't, because what I was about to say was in 2022, they're doing a two-part, both releases at the same time, along with 4K for the first time for both releases. So 4K is not coming out until 2022 as a combined release, Joker's face meeting Two-Face's face. I'm getting that, which also means, strangely, I am not going to get the physical of Batman Long Halloween Part 2 by itself, because there's no point. I already got a physical for Part 1. I didn't have to wait extra for that. Being that I review them, I have to get them that night. And then because I'm crazy, I have to buy the physical. I'm not getting 6 Long Halloweens, guys. Not happening. Or am I? Special features. The new showcase short, The Losers, obviously, is one of the special features. The Long Halloween Part 2 sneak peek is another special feature. There's also what I call filler content, which is like there's, previews for previous release. I think it was Dark Knight Returns Part 1, as well as, which is amazing if you haven't seen it. As well, I forget the other one, but kind of filler. But the other fun thing was, again, the sneak peek of Part 2, which, stay tuned here at the channel. We're going to have another vid here on the channel with B-roll from some behind the scenes of Long Halloween Part 2. So stay tuned for that. One of my favorite special features, the high-res gallery with on Movies Anywhere, of course. If you have the digital code when you get the Blu-ray, Movies Anywhere then has these special features that I'm talking about. One of my favorites is the high-res gallery, stills of the movie. Obviously for this, you're not going to get a still of The Losers. That annoys me a little bit. This is a very first world gripe. I just wish maybe there was one still among like the 10 that Movies Anywhere could put in of the shorts. But it's all Long Halloween stills. So let's hit the review, people. my initial thoughts, and then we'll go over the spoiler wall. Just because this is an extra spoilery movie, I want to do initial thoughts first. But we usually do this anyway. This is a lot of fun. I mean, I said that about Commandy, but this is fun in a different way. Like, I think Commandy was more fun in like a kid's way. It had some adult stuff to it, but I think it was just a straight up one-to-one, you're inside a comic. This is way more adult adventure fun, but specifically because of the crazy violence. Like, there is some crazy ass violence in this movie. It's gory, it's intense, but it's just a lot of fun because when we get to the spoiler wall, and if you've seen it, which you should have because this is a spoiler review, wow, is the violence fun. I saw it twice now, liked it much better with each viewing, with, the second viewing. Animation is one of the best parts. I guess before I move on, I should say I liked it much better with each viewing. We'll get more into details with this, but it's thematically heavier and way better story than, again, you had a ton of just fun, action, crazy sci-fi violence. So you can overlook that a little bit. I mean, some heart to it with the very end, which again, we'll get to after the spoiler wall. But I think that you overlook a lot of stuff because it's so crazy and it's a short. You rewatch it, you're like, oh, wow, there's some cool themes with that. Some cool themes. Animation, one of the best parts, reminded me of Commandy with kind of that one-to-one comics to animation. Like this more so with the backgrounds like Commandy. Commandy felt 100% you're just inside a Jack Kirby 1972 comic. But both projects have this distinctive feel, I think, from the rest of the shorts, which is inside a comic. Like, and we'll get to the specifics of why, but I did love that about this. Action was superb, absolutely superb, not just because of the violent stuff. I just think it had a unique tone of action, like, once again, very fun and sci-fi fantastical, but also very adult, gore and violence, war story at the end of the day. And that's why it's not just gore and violence for the sake of it, not just to be adult for the sake of it, which I think especially the DCAM features have fallen victim to in the past of just trying to be grown up for the sake of being grown up, where it's like, no, do it for a reason. And that reason should be, this is a war movie. That should be a reason. And war movies, that's a common trope. Like, I looked up some tropes, which we'll get to, and this fulfills it. So last thing I'll say for initial thoughts, you could probably guess by the title what happens to our losers ensemble, at least some of them. It's still a really solid and impressive ending, like way better, I think, than it should have been. Review details / spoiler wall. We're hopping over the wall, people. This is where I take a drink for the podcast of H2O. Catch my breath. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. Dinosaurs, baby. I am so glad I didn't read the synopsis for this movie ahead of time. Like, it's on the outside of Long Halloween. I cover the hell out of this. I take pictures, make sure I get the synopsis of the shorts on pictures when I cover these movies for you guys. Didn't read it, or at least the end of it. I mean, the dinosaurs worked perfectly for the tone I talked about earlier, for this like sci-fi fantastical craziness meets violence. It's gory as hell. It's crazy as hell. It's scary as hell, but it's fun as hell because it's dinosaurs. Immediately recognized Ming-Na Wen's voice. She, again, is Special Agent Fan Long, and I couldn't figure out at first who it was, but are you kidding me? Like Fennec Shand of The Mandalorian. Some funny Mandalorian casting with this as well. That I said that before. I'm sorry. That Katie Sackhoff is Poison Ivy. I love how we're thrown right into action. Again, like you're inside a comic. So I was saying before that this inside a comic feel that we got also from Commandy, what we got here, like, the freeze frames with the character titles, and just also with any movie, any story, just throw us right into the action, especially with a short. Throw us right into the action, let alone a war short. Shit. I love the dog. I believe his name was Pooch. Freeze frame on him. Part of the ensemble. Perfect. And poor Pooch later on. Oh, my God. That's how you know you have a piece of shit villain. Well, in this case, it was a dinosaur. I don't know. Maybe our betrayer took him out. and we'll get to that when we get to themes after this. Oh my God. So we'll kind of hit the rest of the story and the other spoilery stuff when we get to themes, which is now. Dirty Dozen, Suicide Squad, Rogue One, these ragtag teams, once again, of people who most likely, most of whom are not going to make it out. In some stories, none of them make it out. And we'll get to our story in a second, but I do love that with this, you get kind of what we got the opposite of in Justice Society World War II. And I don't just say because it's a World War II movie, although that coincidence works out perfectly. Ted Kendrick, I went into it kind of expecting dinosaurs, haha, from what little I know about the losers because of New Frontier comic book intro. Yeah, I'm glad I was that clueless. This is where I don't like admitting that I'm not super deep into comics, but it works out for me being a DC animation person because the stories have so much surprise to them. You know, stories should unfold, surprise you in a lot of ways. And not having read the source material, I guess that works out. There's my excuse, Ted. And shout out to Ted. Thank you for your comment. Ted is a hero of the DCAU Watchtower, is actually just on our 100th podcast episode. Thanks for the comment, Ted, and thanks for coming on the podcast once again. The part 2 of that, by the way, for the Above and Batman Beyond listeners, that's next week. This week we're covering the McFarlane action figure pre-order Batwoman Beyond news, but after that we're going to have Ted and the DCAU Watchtower back up. But yeah, I mean, back to the actually, we'll get to the dinosaurs in a second, but back to the idea of like the Suicide Squad Dirty Dozen, opposite of JS World War II, which is once again wanting to be remembered. So Black Canary had this background of, it's established that she had kind of a shady background, and it's kind of like what I guess we got in Avengers with Black Widow. I got red in my ledger, right? So she doesn't have the best background, but she becomes a hero. Justice Society, they're heroes. It's a whole heroic story. They're the good guys. The losers are supposed to be the good guys as well, but it's more of a Suicide Squad type team. But it's this idea of like wanting to be remembered. So Black Canary, even though she has this red in her ledger, even though she wants to make up for bad things, she also wants to be remembered for the stuff that they're doing in World War II. Whereas these guys, like, they're, you know, they probably want that too, but they almost know that it's supposed to be special forces, black ops as it gets. As they said before, like, they're trying to clean their record of a CIA kill list. You don't get any deeper into black ops than that. The whole point of these people is to lose. That is their purpose. But this idea of like, are we going to be remembered? Probably not. But is the impact of our actions still going to matter? And that's what Black Canary has to ask herself. That's what these guys do as well. And that's kind of a true hero, right? Is not, hey, look at me, I did it. And also probably what fits into the idea of secret identities and stuff like that. Also the idea of a clean slate, once again, red in my ledger. If these guys are, you know, especially these guys wiping themselves from a CIA kill list, like they have, for them, it's maybe this will give me a second chance. Maybe this will make up for, we get a little bit of that redemption, right? The theme of redemption that we get. Sorry, I almost X'd out of the YouTube. That was my face, YouTube watchers. Well, oh, Ted left us a bat and a heart. Thanks, Ted. Man, I almost X'd out. That was scary as shit. But yeah, like getting, you know, wiping the red from your ledger. In this case, we get a little the theme of redemption with Suicide Squad. But once again, going back to, you know, you're not here to necessarily do that, and kind of the overall saving the people, saving the good of the many kind of is more important than your own redemption. But redemption is definitely a theme here, so I think that's pretty cool. Mystery of the Island. I love that, you know, there's a lot of themes of mystery here, and we'll, of course, get to our the ultimate twist that we get. But before we get to that, it's also like this mystery of the dinosaurs. Again, me not doing my homework, I didn't know dinosaurs are about to come out, but it's a perfect device to like just keep it fun and be like, what the hell's going on this island? I mean, we got in the very intro, again, we jump right into action and we have these sea beasts that these sea creatures that take over the boat. And the captain's like, what the hell just happened to my boat? Like, are you going to tell me what was out there? And she's like, no. But then all of a sudden we see dinosaurs. You're really like, wait, what is going on this island? But it ties into this greater theme. And, you know, the mystery and power of the A-bomb, though, I think is like one of the ultimate themes of this, because we have all this emerging tech at the time of World War II. In the case of this island, this rift that lets in these dinosaurs, that big glowing rift thing, you know, as Fan Long says, we don't know what we're going to do to harness this power, but what we do know is we want to get it on the right side. And if the power of this thing gets into the wrong hands, so this is very A-bomb, right? And she even says it's 100 times stronger than your A-bomb. These questions of what are we going to do with emerging tech? That's what a lot of World War II was. That big mystery of, yeah, we can split an atom. So Einstein does the math. We don't know what's going to happen. As Phoebe says in Friends, a bunch of crap comes out. We didn't know what that crap was going to be. And that also ties into, like, even later on, the controversy of, I think, dropping the A-bomb. I'll stop getting so deep into history in a second, but like with Harry Truman, you know, that decision to drop the A-bomb might have been a lot different, or Nagasaki and Hiroshima, if they knew the aftermath of all that stuff, all the radiation and everything. Yeah, you saved millions of lives, but that's why that controversy continues, because of the technological power of the A-bomb. So, and a lot of this happens with Nazis. We got it in Sergeant Rock. You know, what if we can create Frankenstein's monster? What if the Nazis get Frankenstein's monsters and we see a bunch of Nazi Frankenstein monsters and it kicks ass? But I think this mystery of, first it's dinosaurs, then you mistrust Fan Long, then she goes like, you know, tells us about the power of this thing. So you're like, oh, that's what this is really about. It's this mystery of, you know, the power of tech and the power of destruction and the power of the human condition of, you know, what if the wrong person? Hitler's going to do way different things with tech than someone who's not. So it's kind of a mystery of the human, mistrusting humanity, right? And then finally, again, man, mistrusting Fan herself and her ultimate betrayal, the twist of Fan Long's betrayal. Finding the dead scientist, like that gunner finding the scientist, that was so sick. Oh, it was so brutal. But like that also, again, fits into kind of mistrusting humankind and the dark sides of humankind, and why philosophies like existentialism came out especially popular after World War II. You had people facing the horrors of humanity going like, if this is what human beings are capable of, then what the fuck matters at all? Like the only thing that's for sure is death, which is dark. And I'm not promoting it all the way, but back to away from philosophy and back to the story here. While existentialism does have its benefits, back to the story here. We'll finish up with the World War II tropes here, right? So you have, or I should say, with World War II stories, I found like some common war story tropes, and we'll finish up with war story stuff is what I wanted to say. The hero, the squad, character death, like so much of what you normally get in war movies, you're getting with this. Like we obviously have our team of heroes. This team of heroes happens to be a squad. So it could just be one hero, but in this case, it's a whole squad of heroes. And then character death, like obviously, just all over this thing. The action throughout this, speaking of character death, we'll get to some fun stuff now. I mean, man, losing, especially Pooch, like you're like, no, how are they going to kill a dog? What I can't stop remembering is anytime I think about gore and adult violence, it's when the raptor opened his mouth about to eat somebody, and then one of the guys just has a machete right through the back of his head, comes out his mouth. Like that was such a bloody, even for dinosaurs, you're like, ooh, that poor dinosaur. I loved, again, that like sci-fi meets action, but that is a potential thing. I mean, if you really want to go nuts with the question of what if the wrong person got their hands on this technology? Like some asshole could just harness this gate and let out dinosaurs and do like a Jurassic Park attack anywhere he wanted if he was able to drop this thing anywhere. So that's just a fun little, I think the dinosaurs, again, are just a fun byproduct of this what would happen type thing. Back to war stuff here and the story, like the stakes are the highest they could possibly be. You know, they even say in the beginning, this is a weapon that could end all wars. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but just the idea that back to World War II specifically is like, yeah, that war was, you can't get higher stakes than that war. And your enemies couldn't be clearer. What's cool about this is with spies and shit, you have a little bit of who's my enemy, who's not my friend. But, you know, Fan Long betraying them, I thought, was a really cool way of being like, the stakes are so high for all of us that like we will do whatever it takes on either side. And that's where we get the classic, especially DC, knocking it out the park with villains meet heroes. You know, how far will you go morally in your everyday violence to bring about a greater moral good? So again, this fits into just war stories in general. And how far are you going to go morally in your everyday violence? So you could be violent, but like how violent? Women and children, how deep are you going to go, for example, to bring about, again, a greater moral good? So not to get too deep once again philosophically, but it's, you know, Kantianism versus utilitarianism. It's needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many, which of course we'll get to in a second with sacrifice, of going like, you can kind of look at the sacrifice of the losers as a parallel to what, you know, Fan's ultimate question to herself and to her country, which is, yeah, I'm going to kill some scientists and put them in boxes and betray these losers guys. But look, it's for the greater glory of my country. And it's so that my country gets this because I believe what we're doing is right. And what person fighting doesn't believe their country's right? Isn't that why people kind of fight wars, right? You believe your country is right, or you're at least trusting your country. She's saying that. I'm not defending her. I'm just saying this is where, while World War II does have clear enemies, especially Nazis and stuff, it's like Southeast Asia, things are a little hairier, right? I mean, Japan obviously was our big enemy at the time, but we had some allies in Southeast Asia. The South Pacific, it says that is where this island is. If you're not familiar, you know, Vietnam, Southeast Asia. We did have some allies down there in China, all throughout Asia during World War II, but we definitely had some enemies. It doesn't say what country she's, you know, hailing from and talking about citing the glory thing, but it is interesting. I also think philosophically this might be a little deep here, a bit of a stretch, but for 2 seconds, go with me here on this philosophical flight of fancy, but East meets West thought. It tends to be like needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, which once again is fascinating with this, because that's exactly what especially a team of losers has to accept. The needs of us will die for the needs of the greater many. That tends to be a little more East meets West, you know, thought of like Asian/Eastern countries tend to, again, favor the needs of the many versus we're in the West about individualism. And, you know, I'm not promoting one or the other. I'm just saying what philosophies tend to be. East meets West. It's cool to kind of, I think, maybe get a little bit of that coming out with her. But again, it's not to demonize, of course, the East, let alone Asian culture. It's just to say that, is that so bad when you then look at what the suicide type Rogue One type losers team is doing, which is sacrificing themselves, doing what they think is right, destroying this thing. And she even says at the very end, could you end this movie better? Of her going, but you're going to lose everything. That's what we do. Oh, just perfect. You kind of knew that was coming when she said that. That was a pretty obvious setup for that line, but so well done. So closing thoughts again, I really did love this short. Better with each viewing. I would love an animated series of this. I talk about this commonly with when I review these shorts, like what I want an animated series, what I want to feature, what would I want. I would love an animated series, but not ongoing, like not serialized, I should say, anthology only. And they all have to die at the end of every one. No, but I just think like, a feature could work, but it would probably be more fun to just get like a bunch of anthology shorts, modern losers, World War II losers, Vietnam losers, Korea losers. You could do Afghanistan losers. I mean, you could just go nuts. The themes are a lot more powerful than it might seem watching this thing for the first time. I said this a few times at this point, but in closing thoughts, again, there's so much there thematically. I could watch a World War II versus, World War II humans v dinos all day. So bring it. Like these action scenes. I mean, another one just in closing before we go, some more fun stuff. That circle shot where it's like the camera's in the middle of the loser just taking out dinosaur. That amazing plane flying in the very Butch Cassidy and the Sundance way of just like sacrificing, going out with glory. But of course, the bombs doesn't work. He has that funny line prior to that with, let me guess, made in China. But the second he passes through the rift thing, then the bombs drop, and he's just like, that figures. Like great lines, great action within these war one-liners. I loved mile a minute running from a T-Rex. Just great war action, great Jurassic Park action in the middle of all this. But then like graphic, like you would not get that in Jurassic Park. Way more graphic than that. Fantastic. Like I could just watch that shit all day. And again, how common is it that we get World War II meets dinosaurs? Not very, right? I'm assuming we're not getting another loser short, possibly ever, but never say never. Again, anthology style I would love. So bring that. Versus like the Commandy short, I think that would be great. I think it was kind of a cliffhanger, the last one. So I think there could be another like serialized. I wouldn't want features of Commandy, but I think serialized shorts would be fun. One a year, one Commandy a year. Why not? And then finally, I loved Long Halloween. So this included with that movie, not just to plug that review, but I love Long Halloween. This is a really memorable Blu-ray purchase. And that is it for our review of DC Showcase Shorts, The Losers. Before we go, this is once again another installment of our Showcase Short review series. We started off with Commandy, Last Boy on Earth. That was the second most recent, DC Showcase Short releases. Then we filled it in with 4 of the 2019 to 2020 Showcase Shorts. We did Sergeant Rock so far, Phantom Stranger, Adam Strange. We got Death, a 2-part for Death coming up because Death was that good. But then, in addition to this loser short, we're then going to end the whole series because I totally planned this timing, not at all, with the next Blue Beetle short, which is the next short that's going to come out, again, along with Batman The Long Halloween Part 2. Next week, we got the Mortal Kombat Battle of the Realms trailer reaction coming up for next episode. Yeah. Long Halloween coverage, vids and pods. Once again, absolutely love that movie. We have our vid, the Batman The Long Halloween Part 1, or I should say, The Long Halloween in 4 minutes, and it goes behind the scenes of Long Halloween Part 1. And then coming up, we're going to have another, again, behind the scenes vid for Long Halloween Part 2. Of course, pick up your copy of The Losers. Again, The Losers comes with Batman The Long Halloween Part 1, available now on both digital and Blu-ray. So again, if you are new here to the YouTube channel, please consider subscribing on YouTube. Click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. And for the podcast listeners, please subscribe to the pod. Just like the vid series, we are a DC Animated Movie Show. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, this particular episode is available in both video and audio form, so you get to pick your poison for today's show. But again, please subscribe to both since there's plenty of YouTube stuff you're obviously not going to find on the podcast and vice versa. Follow us on Instagram. We are at DC Animated Movie Show. And follow the YouTube channel as well. We are at Batman Beyond Media. So this has been Benjamin David. And remember, animated, we stand. And YouTube audience, your patience, beyond appreciated. 3 times a charm, baby. 3 times a charm.